Matthew, just tell me, how have these drinking water restrictions impacted on the town of Dubbo?
It's actually been pretty good. The community has been very understanding. I thank them for that, and I have apologised to the community because to me it's just not good enough that council can't get the water treated to a level that's acceptable for drinking water. We're a modern city. We should be able to get this right. There's been some extenuating circumstances, I understand that, but I have apologised to the community and I think they've responded very well. Everyone that I've spoken to about it, they're boiling their water, they're buying bottled water, they're doing the right thing, and we haven't had any outbreak of illness, which is my major concern. Obviously, the last thing I would want to see is something that's happened from a council perspective cause any discomfort or illness in the community.
Yeah, and how are your supplies of bottled water going at this point?
Pretty good. I mean, most people that I've spoken to have actually just been boiling their water at home. That's fairly convenient. You boil your water, you put it in some bottles or some glasses, you leave it to cool down a bit. You might put it in the fridge. But we did actually give the supermarkets some warning. When we put out the boiled water alert, we actually rang them as well and said, you might want to order in some more bottled water. We've just put out a boiled water alert. And so they've actually ordered in good supplies of bottled water. And it's a bit different to the toilet paper COVID-19 situation because obviously that was across the nation. In this scenario, it's one city, so they've been able to get supplies from other supermarkets. And most supermarkets now, when you walk in, you'll see some pallets of bottled water at the front, and there seem to be good supplies there.
So tell me, Dubbo's been through a roller coaster ride when it comes to water supply in recent years. You had the drought a couple of years ago, leading to some water restrictions. Now you've got floods, which are causing these kind of contamination problems. Just tell me what you've had to face when it comes to these kind of climate events in the past few years.
And you're right. And it's actually interesting. I think we'll see more of these as we do get more variations in our climate, as climate change starts to take more effect. We've got to be able to get to the point where we can be resilient against these sorts of things. And this particular issue we've got now actually does probably, and we're still looking at the analysis, the first problem is to fix the problem and then we'll analyse it more, but this probably does relate back to the drought. During that drought, we obviously had lots of animals dying, lots of animals seeking more water, trying to get closer to rivers, and then some of that fecal matter that was on riverbanks, some of the carcasses that were on riverbanks, they've been sitting there for a couple of years. And then when you get a flood event like this, and I don't say that Dubbo's flooded, but it's certainly been a flood event, and when you get that flood event go through and pick up some of that debris, most of the people that are experts on water around this area have never seen so much debris brought down in our river. The other problem we've had is that we've got some other rivers that feed into the Macquarie River, which is our main river. And there's one called the Little River, but at the moment it is anything but little. There's one bridge in particular that I know the water, you almost need a pair of binoculars to look from the bridge down to see the water because it's well below the bridge. That water has been up to that bridge and actually going across that bridge. So it is very high in that particular little stream that feeds in, or little river. And obviously there's a lot of debris that's been picked up that hasn't been picked up for decades. So that's all been fed in. That's increased the turbidity of the water that's been picked up by our water treatment plant, and we just didn't have enough ability in that water treatment plant to change quick enough to be able to treat the water to an acceptable standard with that increased turbidity of water coming in.
Yeah, and what does this say to you about, what we need to do to prepare some of these regional towns for more extreme climate events?
Yeah, certainly there's got to be acknowledgement that climate change is real, which I hope that most of the society, most of the community is getting to the stage that they're finally believing that it is actually happening. And some of these extreme events, you've got to start putting some planning in place. We built this or upgraded our water treatment plant back in 2006. It was a $23 million upgrade then. And the idea then was to have a water treatment facility that was good enough to handle a population of 55,000 people. It was all about planning for the future. But I just don't think, even when we did it way back then, that we were thinking we'll get some extreme weather events like we've had now and therefore building it to cater to that. So we've got to make sure we plan our water treatment facility and where we get our water from. And that's probably one of the things in this particular scenario, getting our water from more bore water. In the case where there is more turbid water in the river, being able to take more water from our bores. We've got the ability to take some water from our bores now, but we just don't have the ability to take 100% of the water we need from the bores. And that would have been a way to solve the problem in this scenario, but we just don't have that capability at this stage.
And is there enough support for local councils to mitigate these kind of events right now?
It's an interesting question. I don't think it's really been tested at this stage. Certainly water treatment facilities around the state, when councils are treating water as we do, and we own that function of council, then we get support from government at various times when we need it. but it usually is a facility that is a profit-making venture for council. So we have to keep water in a separate bucket, if you like, for the water treatment facility. So we can't make profit out of that and spend it in other areas of council. So normally the way you treat a water treatment facility is that you make a little bit of money going forward, so you've got enough put aside there to upgrade as you need in future years. So we don't really look to government often for support specifically for our water treatment, but with some of these extreme water events, that might be something we'll be finding ourselves doing more and more.
Yeah, I mean, what would you like to see in terms of support?
Well, I think the first thing is a good analysis, and that'll be a good example here. I think we'll see Dubbo being used to really analyse that by the government to say what happened there, how can we prevent that happening, and then from there go forward and look at various facilities around the state and see how they might need to change. So I really think at this stage, the first thing that I'd look to for government would be to give us some help in a really detailed analysis to see what went wrong here, what might go wrong in the future, how we can prevent it in the future, and then there'll be some steps in place that we can look to try and prevent it. But again, that detailed analysis, the government's got more experts, more water expertise than each individual council might have. The only other thing that's interesting, I think, is that many years ago we had an engineer at council called Stuart McLeod, and he looked at some of the other surrounding councils around the area and looked at their water treatment facilities, and we actually ended up creating, at his direction, an alliance called the Lower Macquarie Water Utilities Alliance. And so we had some money contributed from each council, including our council. We engaged some water experts, and we really worked on making sure that we were delivering best practice water to all of those councils. So it was a collaborative effort. So I think that sort of collaboration is the type of way, whether it be collaboration with councils amongst each other or with a state government, that's something that I think can really help move the analysis forward and really get a better solution for everyone.